On November 30th, 2018, in Baltimore, Maryland, the Smith family was out celebrating Valeria Smith's 28th birthday at the American Legion Hall. They enjoyed a meal, danced, and snapped photos together. After leaving the hall close to midnight, they drove near Valeria's home when Keith, her father, stopped the car. He rolled down the window because Jacqueline, Valeria's stepmother, wanted to give some money to a woman on the street. This woman, appearing to be a new mother, was holding a sign that read, "Please help me feed my baby." Tragically, this act of kindness would lead to disaster. Keith later told the city of Baltimore a painful lesson: be cautious, as appearances can be deceiving. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, we dive into a tale full of twists and deceit. It's a story about how a city's image was used, while officials dug deep to reveal the shocking truth. Late that night, at 12:30 a.m. on December 1st, 2018, Keith made an urgent call to 911 from his car. His wife, Jacqueline, had been stabbed and was dying beside him, while his daughter, Valeria, sitting in the back, witnessed the terrifying event. The 911 operator told them to rush to Johns Hopkins Hospital, but despite the doctor's best efforts, Jacqueline died. She had been stabbed 5 times in the chest and once on her arm. The family said she was attacked by 2 beggars who fled after the assault.
My wife just felt moved to give her something. So at the stop sign, she waved her over to come on over to the car, and then out of nowhere, some guy came over while walking with her. And I hit my window, and Jacqueline went to hand the money out, and the guy just leaned over and said, "Can I thank your wife?" And I said, "You can thank my wife." And within that split second, this guy commenced to stabbing my wife. Blood was everywhere. It was something that, it was horrific for something like that to happen. But I'm right now just absorbing all of it.
Jacqueline Smith was born as Jacqueline Trevane in Providence, Rhode Island on July 4th, 1964. Her mother described her as a joyful child who became a loving and endlessly kind adult. From a young age, Jacqueline had a passion for music and poetry.
That's what we did. We enjoyed music. We listened to music. And so when I'm in my car and I'm listening to music now, I shed a tear.
At 54, Jacqueline had successfully raised 2 sons, one in college and another a graduate serving in the U.S. Coast Guard. Professionally, she thrived as an electrical engineer for the Department of Defense in Maryland. In 2014, she married Keith Smith, and together they were active members of their church community. Jacqueline was celebrated for her deep faith and generous spirit.
Jackie was an awesome, awesome woman, and it's really, really sad, and it's heartbreaking the way that she was taken from us.
The day after Jacqueline's murder, her husband and stepdaughter bravely faced the media to issue a warning to their community: be cautious and not too quick to trust those who seem desperate for help, as they might pose a danger. Law enforcement also cautioned the people of Baltimore, stating, "Some of those on the street are not who they appear to be."
I just want to let Baltimore know to be careful when you feel like you want to give, because you don't know what the intentions are of the person that you're giving to.
You know, and it makes me look at this whole world differently now. You know, it makes me look at everything and everyone. Nothing is ever what it seems. And you just have to protect your family out here.
Using this ruse as panhandlers to get the attention of their would-be victim. And we also want to caution the public about engaging with panhandlers and recognizing the fact that not all of them have honest intent. Not all of them are in real need.
The brutal attack on Jacqueline stirred widespread anxiety and sparked fear towards the homeless, not just in Baltimore, but nationwide, as the news of the tragic incident spread through national media. The situation gained even more attention when Oprah Winfrey responded to the news of Jacqueline's fatal act of kindness. She tweeted, "I've done this 1,000 times, but will think twice before ever doing it again." Law enforcement quickly released descriptions of the 2 suspects, believed to be panhandlers, who were apparently targeting generous individuals to rob and, if necessary, attack them.
To identify that suspect. He's described as a man possibly in his 30s with a goatee. And we also want to identify the woman who was out there asking for money.
Homicide detectives met with Keith and Valeria Smith on the night of the murder at Johns Hopkins Hospital to take their initial statements. Afterwards, they headed directly to the 1000 block of Valley Street to secure the crime scene. Despite arriving within hours of the incident, the detectives found no signs of the stabbing at the reported location. The following morning, just after 10 a.m., detectives Borgard, Singer, and Santos returned to the scene, this time with daylight to aid their investigation. They conducted a thorough canvass of the neighborhood, walking the streets, searching the surrounding areas, and speaking with local residents. Despite their efforts, they found no evidence related to the attack. They couldn't independently confirm the exact spot where the Smiths claimed to have stopped for the Panhandlers, nor could they locate any witnesses. The murder weapon, a knife, was also not found. It became increasingly clear to the experienced detectives that the 1000 block of Valley Street was neither well-traveled nor heavily populated, an unlikely place for panhandlers to frequent. They concluded that most of the houses on the 1000 block were vacant, casting further doubt on the Smiths' account of the events.
Nobody's really panhandling right there. You know what I'm saying? Nobody.
Keith's 2012 Audi A7, the car he drove on the night of Jacqueline's murder, was taken straight from the hospital to police headquarters for a thorough examination. The only latent fingerprints found on the exterior of the passenger side were identified as Keith's. Inside the car, a pair of black gloves lay on the center console, and a set of yellow rubber gloves was found in the back seat. Additionally, an acrylic fingernail, seemingly belonging to Valeria, was discovered lodged in the seat. However, there were no unidentified DNA samples or fingerprints that could point to the mysterious panhandlers accused of the murder. Investigators continued to try to confirm the details Keith and his daughter had provided, particularly the route the car had taken that night. The FBI was brought in to try to extract GPS data from the car's computer, but their attempts were unsuccessful. Despite their diligent efforts, the Baltimore police found themselves at a dead end without any leads to pursue. The homeless outreach team, CHOT team, was also involved, given the descriptions provided by Keith and Valeria. Using all available resources, they still were unable to identify any suspects related to the case.
I just want them to find, if anybody knows anybody, if anybody has any information, please help us and find out who did this to my stepmother, please.
The investigation into Jacqueline Smith's murder was hampered by the detectives' inability to confirm the crime scene, prompting them to piece together a timeline using surveillance footage from around the city. They confirmed the Smiths' departure from the American Legion Hall at 11:45 p.m., through camera footage, but faced difficulties tracking the Audi's movements thereafter. Despite reviewing 27 CCTV cameras along the route from the Legion to Valley Street and checking motion-activated residential security cameras on East Chase and East Egger Streets, they found no footage of the incident or Keith's vehicle. The next investigative step involved examining cell phone data from Keith and Valeria's phones. While Keith's phone showed no activity before the 911 call, Valeria's phone data contradicted their initial account. Instead of heading south towards Valeria's home, the data indicated they had traveled north to Druid Hill Park near the Maryland Zoo, where they stayed for about 15 minutes, a location and stop they had not disclosed to the police. Police also analyzed Jacqueline's cell phone activity, which last recorded at about 4 p.m. that afternoon from her home in Aberdeen, showing no signs of being with her during the night of the murder, despite reports that she had it on her person. Further efforts to trace Jacqueline's stolen items through pawn shops yielded no results. However, a breakthrough came a week and a half later when Jacqueline's Visa card was used, leading to the detention of 3 teenagers who claimed to have found the card in a clutch at a bus stop. This bus stop was located along the route confirmed by cell phone data, not the one Keith and Valeria claimed to have taken. After 3 months of diligent work, Baltimore detectives found no evidence linking panhandlers to the murder. Instead, they uncovered multiple inconsistencies in the Smiths' statements, such as conflicting accounts about who stole Jacqueline's purse during the attack.
And when she did, some guy came over to say, "Can I thank her?" And as he did that, and I'm not thinking he gonna do what he did, he commenced to stabbing my wife. He snatched her necklace before I knew it, and the girl snatched a little pocketbook in the seat, and they both ran.
Keith Smith had initially been quite outspoken, warning his neighbors about the dangers of the city's homeless after the tragic incident. His story quickly caught national attention, leading to widespread media coverage. However, as the story grew in the media, Keith suddenly ceased giving interviews. When police later confronted him with the cell phone location data that contradicted his original account, Keith changed his story. He admitted that he had been lost that night and was too embarrassed to confess it initially. He explained that they had indeed driven to the park, where they parked for a while and looked at photos from earlier that evening on their phones. Following this interview, Keith returned home. Shortly thereafter, he agreed remotely to a year-long lease on a modest home in Florida. He then ordered a rental truck, packed his belongings, and left Maryland, moving swiftly and seemingly in an attempt to start anew under less scrutiny.
February the 4th, and he came in one night with a very large moving truck and rapidly loaded it the next day, and we never saw him since.
When Valeria Smith was brought in for questioning, she quickly requested an attorney, ending the interview abruptly. She then left Maryland to join her father, Keith, who was already on the move. Aware of their flight, law enforcement kept a close eye on their movements, suspecting that Keith was aware he was under surveillance. He tried to evade a wiretap by changing his phone number, switching his phone provider, and sending a new cell phone to his daughter, but the police continued to monitor his communications. In February 2019, Keith attempted to escape the country by booking flights to Canada and Cuba. However, these plans were thwarted because he lacked a U.S. passport. He then learned that he could travel to the U.S. Virgin Islands using only his driver's license. During this time, he also searched online for ways to travel to Mexico without passing through an official border crossing. On March 1st, Keith rented a car in Texas, which triggered an immediate reaction from the Baltimore police. An arrest warrant was issued for both Keith and his daughter on charges of first-degree murder. By March 3rd, according to the warrant, they were found just 20 minutes from the Mexican border, evidently attempting to flee the country and evade prosecution.
Let's be realistic. We would all love to take a vacation to Mexico. You know, you get a chance to go to Mexico, you say yes. Your dad says, hey, you know what, let's head on down to Mexico. Let's take a little family vacation, some R&R. I don't see there being any criminal element to that.
Up until the point that they decided to issue a warrant, they didn't have any other suspects. Mr. Smith is always innocent until proven guilty, and I haven't seen anything yet that proves him guilty.
Keith and Valeria Smith were arrested by Texas law enforcement later on the same day the warrant was issued. The quick response from the authorities ensured that they were apprehended before they could cross the border and potentially evade the charges awaiting them back in Baltimore.
In the course of our investigation, we developed evidence that Mr. Smith was leaving Maryland, so we made the appropriate national notifications, and the Texas State Police arrested him this morning.
We pursued the evidence from the very beginning, and these detectives were very tenacious. They were very thorough and dedicated.
These individuals took advantage of a situation, a city that is already dealing with its own problems. So we're looking forward to this cruel act being brought to justice.
The arrest warrant for Keith and Valeria Smith did not specifically outline how the investigators believed the murder was committed, but it detailed the numerous falsehoods and deceptive tactics they employed throughout the investigation. It also noted the absence of any other suspects. However, the Panhandler story, as it turned out, was just one part of a darker narrative. Investigators discovered that the Panhandler ruse was not Keith's initial plan to kill his wife. A friend of Keith's brother revealed that Keith had previously sought assistance to get rid of his wife. In the months before Jacqueline's death, she had discussed wanting a divorce with Keith, something he reportedly did not want. Instead, Keith seemed to have his sights set on Jacqueline's life insurance, where he was still named the beneficiary. Indeed, just 2 days after Jacqueline's murder, Keith visited her workplace to request the necessary paperwork to claim her life insurance. However, law enforcement, already skeptical of his narrative, advised the insurance company to delay any payments. This decision allowed Jacqueline's 2 sons the opportunity to contest her estate in probate court. Meanwhile, facing financial pressure as he plotted his escape, Keith attempted to secure a cash advance on his American Express card, which was declined. The revelation that the story of a murder by panhandlers was a fabricated hoax shocked many, but not everyone. Jacqueline's mother, still residing in Rhode Island, expressed to the media that she had never believed Keith's account, dismissing it as complete nonsense from the start.
I knew it was phony. I didn't believe her husband at all. I knew something else happened. Why would he stay in the area with her in the car after the man pulled the chain from her neck, as he claims? It was too phony.
The Trevane family, never particularly close to Keith Smith, may not have been fully aware of his troubled past. Keith's criminal history included committing armed robbery 3 times at the same bank, 20 years before the murder of Jacqueline Smith. His criminal activities began in December 1999 after losing his job at FedEx due to a reduction in his driver's license points. During this period, he also discovered he was HIV positive. Facing financial difficulties and the need for medication, Keith targeted the First Union Bank on York Road in Towson, attracted by its quick access to Interstate 83 for a speedy escape. Wearing a ski mask and armed with a pellet gun, Keith executed his plan by jumping over the bank counter, grabbing cash from the drawers, and making his escape. His first robbery netted him approximately $15,000. He repeated his crime 3 months later, escaping with $6,000, and attempted a third robbery 5 months after that. By then, police had identified his vehicle from a sighting in East Baltimore. A subsequent police chase ended with a crash and Keith's arrest. He was convicted and served 6 years of a 12-year sentence in state prison. During a search of his home, police found about $20,000 in cash, bundled and hidden in a black bag. Valeria Smith, Keith's daughter, was charged as an accessory to the murder of her stepmother, Jacqueline. It remains unclear how the prosecution intended to establish her direct involvement in the premeditated aspects of the crime, but evidence suggested her involvement in covering up the act. Valeria's personal struggles included a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, for which she was institutionalized in 2012, and a subsequent heroin addiction. These factors painted a picture of Valeria as being under her father's influence, possibly coerced into assisting him. Due to her circumstances and potential manipulations by her father, Valeria was offered a plea deal, acknowledging her complex role as both a participant and a victim in the tragic events surrounding her stepmother's death.
Helped her father. She's indicated in the plea agreement that, she helped her father dispose of the knife, helped her father dispose of, the other property, things of that nature. She's taken full responsibility for that. She's still extremely upset about the entire thing. And she, certainly apologizes to the rest of the family for her role in this.
But you can't tell us whether or not she's going to testify against her own father?
During the trial in late 2021, Valeria Smith faced intense scrutiny as she testified against her father, admitting her guilt as an accessory after the fact to the murder of her stepmother, Jacqueline. Valeria recounted the chilling details to the jury. After celebrating her birthday, her father, Keith, drove the family to Druid Hill Park. She believed Jacqueline had fallen asleep in the front seat when Keith fatally stabbed her 5 times. He then disposed of the knife in the nearby woods. Following the murder, Valeria was handed 2 of Jacqueline's wallets, including a Michael Kors clutch, and was instructed by her father to discard them. She left one at the bus stop at Caroline and Madison Avenue, where she observed a group of youths find and examine it. Keith had concocted the Panhandler story, which he then relayed to Valeria as part of the cover-up. The defense aggressively questioned Valeria, suggesting she had played a more active role in the murder than she admitted, and accusing her of lying on the stand to protect herself. The 32-year-old, who was recovering from drug addiction, insisted that she had been coerced by her father into supporting his version of events. She declared her honesty in court was motivated by her desire not to be imprisoned for a crime she did not commit, emphasizing her current aim to tell the truth about the night of the murder.
And they were in love. They were soulmates. And she was an awesome woman. She was a powerful woman. Like, I looked up to her, and
Keith Smith was convicted of first-degree murder in December 2021. He was sentenced to life in prison.
A selfish act where he not only manipulated the hearts and the minds of a country, but he manipulated the heart and the mind of his of his daughter, who was addicted to drugs. He was able to utilize this elaborate scheme and story to prey upon her and who she was and her character.
A month following her father's sentencing, Valeria Smith received her own sentence. She was handed a 5-year prison term for her involvement in covering up the murder of her stepmother, Jacqueline. This outcome brought a sense of relief and closure to Jacqueline's family, who felt that justice had been appropriately served for the tragic loss they endured. The sentencing marked the conclusion of a harrowing and emotional legal process, finally delivering the justice they had been seeking.
I was laughing then, and I knew it was a circus. I knew it was all for optics. I knew it was a show, and I was just laughing. And I knew this day would come. I didn't know it would come this soon.
And that was the story of Keith Smith and the Panhandler murder hoax. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.